Hey, it's me, Mr. Jason. Now, before we get into our video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button as well as that notification bell so that you know whenever we upload. Also, don't forget to comment down below a book that you would like for us to read together. I love requests, and when I get requests, that lets me know that you're out there listening and watching, and we love that here at Read Alouds with Mr. Jason. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, keep reading. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. My name is Mr. Jason, and today I have a read aloud for you. Well, hello, and welcome back to another Read Alouds with Mr. Jason. If you've been following along, last week we started a brand new series entitled The Big Readers. And the Big Reader series is for all those older listeners, those first, second, and third graders. Last week, we kicked off our new series with the story Frog and Toad Are Friends, written and illustrated by Arnold LaBelle. We read our first chapter together as well, Spring. This week, we're going to continue that same story, but a different chapter. Chapter 2, The Story. In addition to our 2- and 3-letter sight words, just for our big readers, we added 4-letter sight words. Now, throughout the story, all of the sight words will be underlined. Our 2-letter sight words will be red, our 3-letter sight words will be blue, and our 4-letter sight words will be yellow. Be sure to leave a comment down below if the underlining of all those sight words is a little distracting. With all the reds and the blues and the yellows all over the pages, I can see how it can be a little hard to read and maybe even get a little confusing. So let me know down in the comments if the underlining helps or if it becomes a distraction. Whichever one you choose, we'll make the proper adjustments for the remainder of our stories together. Now, for the parents and the teachers out there, here are a few key indicators that this story teaches. Each story will have its own key indicators, so be sure to pause the video so you can see which key indicators each chapter is teaching. So, without any further ado, please join us as we get into our story. Toad and Frog Are Friends, Chapter 2, The Story, just for our big readers. In Read Alouds with Mr. Jason. Frog and Toad Are Friends, written and illustrated by Arnold LaBelle. Chapter 2, The Story. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said,
"Frog, you are looking quite green." "But I always look green,"
said Frog.
"I am a frog." "Today you look very green, even for a frog,"
said Toad.
"Get into my bed and rest."
Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said,
"Tell me a story while I'm resting."
"All right," said Toad.
"Let me think of a story to tell you."
Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog.
"I will go out to the front porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me think of a story."
Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head.
"Why are you standing on your head?"
asked Frog.
"I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me think of a story,"
said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head.
"Why are you pouring water over your head?"
asked Frog.
"I hope that if I pour water over my head, it will help me think of a story,"
said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall.
Why are you banging your head against the wall? Asked Frog. I hope if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it will help me think of a story,
said Toad.
I am feeling much better now, Toad, said Frog. I do not think I need a story anymore.
Then you get out of bed
And let me get into it,
said Toad.
because now I feel terrible.
Frog said,
Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad?
Yes, said Toad.
If you know one. Once upon a time, said Frog, there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend Toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he still could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. How was that, Toad? Said Frog.
But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Well, how'd you like that story? Toad went about trying to figure out a story in an extreme way, but I'm pretty sure if he had just looked around, he would have found a story that he could have sat down and read to Frog while he was laying in the bed. Instead, Toad gave Frog all the material he needed to come up with the story. What an interesting turn of events. Well, thank you for reading with me. I had a blast reading with you as I always do. While you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and continue to share. Also, leave a comment down below of a book that you would like for us to read together. The more requests, the better. Well, thank you again for reading with us. And to all my big readers, keep reading.